What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from ActiveMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today we're doing another anniversary release. It is the 30th anniversary of The Paper, which definitely I'm doing you a disservice because I'm watching this and I'm definitely not going to get this review out in time. This has one of those last day on Netflix. I'm like, shit. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. So, but it does have an audio description track when it floats. Just remember, the paper has an existing audio description track, and that's what's most important here. Um, so sorry. Uh, but anyway, um, it's directed by Ron Howard, stars Michael Keaton, Glenn Close, Marisa Tomei, Robert Duvall, Jason Robards, Randy Quaid, Jason Alexander, Catherine O'Hara. I'm just like, uh, what? This cast is ridiculous. Um, eh, just like a tremendous cast in this film, and it's directed by Ron Howard. It got a little bit of like awards buzz and stuff back in the day in 1994. Its Metacritic score is decent, and its IMDb score is decent. Like, this is not a film that like critically were. It's a film that's destined to be sort of like forgotten for 1994. So I like it, and I've seen it before, and I'm glad I have the opportunity because it has audio description to continue to talk about it in its 30th anniversary. Um, and that'll be fun. So first, I want to say I've got my black baseball cap on today. I've got black sunglasses, and I'm wearing a Pizza Planet shirt from Toy Story. Has really no correlation unless you want to like dig super deep and be like, well, Michael Keaton was eventually in the Toy Story franchise. Yes, he was. He was Ken. Anyway, he was just Ken. I'm just Ken. Uh, the paper features an ensemble cast, sort of led by Michael Keaton as sort of an idealistic. I use like three different words there. Journalist who his wife is pregnant. His wife is played by Marisa Tomei, and when we open the movie, there's this crime that's happened, and it's made to look like it's like a race war type of thing, where some black kids killed these white businessmen because they were white, and obviously that's going to outrage the community and be a sensational story. And the film sort of explores how the journalists at this paper rush to get things right. It's so weird to think that this movie is getting dated rapidly as our newspaper industry is dying off. Like we're getting less and less. You know, people are soon they're not going to know what newspapers are. You know, they're going to be like, I don't understand this conceptually. This movie makes no sense to me, and that's sad. But it's about rushing to press. It's about trying to get things before the print has to be done, before, you know what I'm saying, like it's about deadlines and rushing to make sure your story's right by the deadline, because the deadline is the print deadline, and they actually have to go to the printer room and print out all of the newspapers for the next day, for the morning or whatever. So this is when the world relied on newspapers, and we didn't have instant access on the internet with, little instant pop-ups on our phone that just told us immediately, breaking news. I typed this in on my website and I've sent you a push notification. And it didn't happen. You had to wait for the next day's paper to be like, oh my God, did you see this? Yesterday, look at what happened. You know? So it's important that the journalists get it right, because it'll be a whole day before they can retract it. So people like live with the news story, and that's part of what happens here, is that they explore that. And there's so much dynamics going on here. between making sure that you're getting the facts right. Michael Keaton's sort of pursuit for the truth. He's got this sort of rivalry with Glenn Close, who has moved up in the world and makes the decisions, and the battle between the two of them. Um, but also the parallel. Robert Duvall sort of brings, as he almost always does, really to any role, even the ones where he's younger, he brings like always like wisdom, on some level to the role. But this is him and Robards are in that age bracket where they basically just show up to bring wisdom to films, and like I'm the old man here, and let me tell you what the world is like. He's battling some kind of like prostate cancer. I want to say prostate cancer. Uh, in this film, and so he's sort of like struggling with his own mortality and the stuff that he's left behind. And we see him, his daughter's featured in the paper, and he catches it, and he tries to have this relationship with his daughter, but we see that he doesn't. Like his daughter's like, I don't even know you to be mad at you. You know, she's just like, she's just so not bothered, but she's clearly bothered, but also not at the same time. Like, she's bothered by the fact that she doesn't know who he is enough to be bothered by him. That's what it is. Which is a parallel to Keaton, who is younger in this film. Remember, this is 1994, so he's been Batman twice now, and Mr. Mom already, and some other things. So this is Michael Keaton at his like basically like peak stardom, Michael Keaton, and he is younger, up and coming journalist that has still sees this world ahead of him, and his wife is pregnant, and she's like, you know just asking. She's not really, I mean, she comes sort of from the same world. She's not really asking for much. She's just asking for like a little bit of time, and he keeps having to run off to these breaking news stories. And um I think that parallel between the two characters of showing that the older man sort of regrets. There's a lot of regret there as he's facing his own mortality, that he doesn't have any sort of relationship with his daughter. And there's also that sort of that danger with Michael Keaton. It's like, yeah, you're going to get the story right, but at what cost? You know what I'm saying? Like, what cost to you personally? And is any of this really worth it in the long run? So when we talk about the paper and people are like, I don't know, is the paper really consequential? I was like, I think it asks some really interesting, important questions, that are just very nuanced, that are just put in there. And when you put two characters against each other like that, uh, you directly see the parallels, and it doesn't give you an easy answer. It's not like at the end of the film, Michael Keaton stands up and he's like, I quit. I'm gonna go with my family. No, but he seems to have some sort of understanding. He looks at he looks at the family and at his new family, and he's just like, this is it. But we don't know what that means. Like, we don't know. Is he gonna try harder? Is he gonna try to do better? Is he gonna try to do things differently than Robert Duvall did them? Does he see in Robert Duvall the mistakes and use that as a cautionary tale? Or is this maybe Robert Duvall was in the same position when he was Michael Keaton's age in this film, and also was like, I can do it all. I can have it all. I just have to be mindful. Well, apparently it didn't work out for him. So anyway, it's a great cast, full of great performances. I love that Jason Alexander in here plays sort of against type. It's a little bit, but I mean, like, this is before. This is sort of at the beginning of the whole George Costanza thing, before Jason Alexander kind of. This is him kind of coming. He used to be on Broadway, and this is him kind of coming off of that, and people sort of take him seriously as an actor. So he's given a little bit more to do here, that with a little bit more range. I thought his performance was good when it needed to be, and he was believable in the role, which is weird because when you think about him sort of later on in the kind of roles that he gets offered once people start looking him as George from Seinfeld. He gets things like Dunstan Checks In, which is just like pointless. He just gets like these shitty roles thrown at him because people just think of him as like a comedic sidekick. Here, he's not. Ron Howard doesn't treat him like that, so he just has a completely different role. Catherine O'Hara, also great comedic actress, and she's not really in that. That's not really. It's not that The Paper is a straight up drama. It has a levity to it, but it is. It's peppered with levity instead of being dramatically heavy as a film. Um, it has a lot of things that sort of happen throughout it. I don't know. 1994 was a bitch of a year to try to get The Paper in against Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, Shawshank Redemption, Quiz Show. I mean, like there were a lot of great films in 1994. It's a just really banger year for films. Even some films that just really didn't make the awards season list, like True Lies, uh, definitely regarded as a classic, as a cinematic action classic. Now, I mean, there are moments in that film that people look back on and they're like, yeah, of course, duh, James Cameron, True Lies, yeah, why not? And The Paper kind of just slides, even though it's got Ron Howard behind it, even though this is the film that he made before he made Apollo 13, even though the cast is great. I don't know that The Paper is still getting its due, but I think it should. I'm not going to say. I think what would be interesting and would be to have people who really. I want to take some of these channels, these other YouTube channels. I want to sit down with them and talk to people who really follow the Oscars and be like, what if we had always had 10? Would The Paper have been in the 10? You know, um, or like what would those other 5 films have been? Now that we have 10 nominees, if we go back through time and we expand, what were the other 5 movies that likely just missed out on Best Picture nominations? Was The Paper one of them for 1994? Because I could see that. I could see that being the conversation. Like if this was YouTube in 1994 and people are sitting around having conversations about Oscars, I think The Paper is definitely in the mix. It's hard to say that, especially, I mean, when you look at the director and the cast and everything, you can't really just kind of shove it aside and be like, nah, it's nobody's looking at it. And like I said, the Metacritic score is decent on this, so uh, I yeah, I think that it could have slid in. It could have been number 10. Might have been in there, in which case it would have a little bit more standing in terms of award season. But I just don't think history is going to remember The Paper, but I want people to. So, audio description track I thought was nice. I thought it was, there wasn't really anything about it that I was like, oh no, no, no. I mean, it points out the stuff that you need to point out. It has to racially define some characters. It doesn't racially define everybody, but it has to racially define some of it. That's sort of the thing, I guess. But at the same time, maybe everybody knows what these actors look like. I don't know. I never really know, but it sort of goes into that a little bit. It could have committed to it more on a grander level, but then it would have just ended up pointing out like the entire lead cast is white. You know what I'm saying? It's like, welcome to the world of white people. Look at who works at the newspaper. It's a bunch of white people, and they're on their crusade to make sure they get it right, and these 2 black kids don't get convicted, and that's not really what the narrative is, but that's kind of what it could become. I think the film could be made with the exact same way if you just cast it differently. It would have, because it's not trying to be a white savior movie, but it ends up being a white savior movie simply because of the lack of uh, inventiveness within the casting. You'd have just all these people. It's like, it's a little bit like, really? How did you stumble into this? You know? But, whatever. So the audio description would have just pointed that out, and it would have felt more like, well, is this the narrative? And it's like, not really. That's not really the narrative. Just watch the damn film. It's like, eh, I guess it kind of becomes that when you end up looking at it hard that way, and you're like, well, it's the unintended consequence of not diversifying your cast. Is it when you, because then, like, basically any film that's like this ends up becoming a white savior movie because your cast is all white. So how could it not be? like, I don't think that was the intention. I don't think they were like, well, we're going to stand up for the black people of this country in this film. I think because the point is that these two kids are just being scapegoated into the thing, and they're using this as a bait, and it ends up becoming, they figure out who's really doing it, and to stand up to those people is a lot tougher. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot harder to do once they figure out the truth behind everything. So it, let me know what your thoughts are. If you've seen the paper, what your thoughts are on that. Is it a white savior movie? Is it not a white savior? Is it an unintentional just because of how we cast things, the lack of ingenuity and inventiveness in the casting. But it does have a great script. I love the lines of dialogue. I love the way that these actors. That's the thing, is that these are great actors. Keaton's a nominee. Glenn Close is a nominee. Duvall's a winner. You've got Jason Robards. I feel like I should know whether he won or not. I'm going to say he's at least been nominated. He has to have been nominated, even though I can't think for what. But he has to be an Oscar nominee. Marisa Tomei is a winner. The cast is Randy Quaid is an Oscar nominee. I think people forget that because he went off the deep end, but yeah, this is a solid cast that's bouncing off of each other, using this dialogue just like rapid fire, and it was great to watch. I hadn't seen this film in years, and I was really happy to find out that it had audio description on Netflix. I'm just sad that I caught it at the end, and it's just I wasn't planning on being like, oh, I'm putting this out right after I record it. I do a bank reviews, and I already have planned what I'm putting out, so I'm sorry. This is going to come out after it leaves Netflix. But anyway, there you go. I think anyway, unless I change my mind after I record this. But if I do, then the paper. I don't know. There I don't really have any immediate problems with it. So there's stuff that I can look back on, or I can do the 30 years later thing and be like, well, why didn't we diversify the cast? And it's like, I feel like we could say that about a lot of movies, especially the older you get, the further you push back. You're like, where's the diversity in the cast? And then you start getting into tokenism, by the way, which is like sort of the introduction in diversity, where there's like one person who's not, and then you're like, oh, well, that is that the representation for everybody? I don't know that that makes it any better. So I'm just gonna give it an A-. I like the film. There are more classic films coming out of 1994, but I think The Paper is good enough that it should be remembered, that it should be a film that we continue to talk about. I think its IMDb score is a little low. I would love to bump it up above a 7, 6.7. If we could go above a 7, I feel like that would be kind of where The Paper needs to be. But even like a 7.1, it's just like, I'd be good. 7.1, lock it in, do it, run. It's just a little low. But it's only gonna people are only gonna they're either gonna find it incredibly nostalgic because they're gonna be like, wow, a newspaper. Or they're gonna be like, I don't understand this movie anymore. So we'll see how it goes. But 30th anniversary. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.